old
You know,
man figured it out.
they say technology is supposed to make your life easier. I find it's always a lie.
You
It
know,
never
I
does.
mean, it's presenting these challenges to us, man. We become so dependent on it, and I'm fearful that I'm becoming that old man who's gonna soon need his children's help to operate his phone.
I, I halfway feel I'm already there, but I ain't gonna say nothing.
So welcome, good people. So we apologize for all the technical difficulties. This is my good brother, Melvin Unabuife. We
Yeah,
met here recently. I nailed it. Yes, man.
yeah.
I've been practicing it, man. So we met just about a month or so ago at a political event that Tababa was hosting for good Senator Stanley Campbell, Senator to be from Florida. And man, just talking to the brother for a few minutes, I can tell that he was supposed to be in the business of financial services. So I'm very proud to have him on. Somebody ain't telling me McCollar bad. I done been on. Tiffany was just on a Zoom with me and didn't tell me McCollar was tucked into my neck, but that's all right, Tiffany. So,
No love, no love.
you know, we was just on a Zoom. But at the end of the day, man, I wanted to bring, Melvin on to have a conversation with him about financial services, about financial literacy and things like that. And then we got an announcement to make at the end. So Melvin, if you would please tell the good people about yourself. Yeah, anything you want to mention to the good people before we
My
get into our
Tababo,
Q&A.
but my Tababo folks, welcome, 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 welcome. Pleasure to be here. Courtney, like you said, is a good brother of mine. Um, I can't say enough good things about the organization. First of all, so I do want to give that commendation. I've been in a lot of organizations. I've been in the people business for a long time, and rarely have I seen this kind of impact in the community grassroots wise, and it's different when you're just splashing cash around, but it's a whole other thing when it's a people business and you're out there interacting. So certainly props to you guys. Happy to be a part of an organization. My background is primarily in finance. Growing up, my dad was in the custom service, but by trade he was an accountant. And so I saw a lot of that growing up. My mom was a doctor, and so as a Nigerian, you're pulled both ways. You're either one way or the other. But I ended up on the financial side of the industry. Spent the first few years of my career at Fisher Investments. So I started out in sales there, built out a very good name there. Came out to Florida to get the sales division up and running, along with the management, and then transitioned to managing accounts there. So for a while, I managed portfolios and financial plans for high net worth investors. And then over time, especially as I was nearing my 30s, I really started to understand that I wanted to make an impact in my community. And this is one of the best and first ways for me to do so. So I'm excited to be a part of this. I'm excited to share the wealth of knowledge that we've gained over time. Um, Folks like Courtney and I, we're certainly excited to share back with the community because there's not too many of us in the industry. So certainly excited to be a part of this.
I mean, definitely appreciate you. And definitely appreciate meeting your acquaintance, man, and looking forward to the things that we're going to be able to do together, helping our community and from an aspect of financial services, but also help to continue to boost Tababo and the things that Tababo are trying to get accomplished, man. So we'll get right into the Q&A. So a few weeks ago, I made a post about the pillars of wealth, something that I found to be some of the most intricate foundational pieces of building wealth, acquiring wealth, and protecting it. And Melvin found it to be satisfactory, and he wanted to build off of it, man. So definitely looking forward to to hearing your portion, from your perspective on how these things work. So the first pillar that I mentioned was income. So there's five pillars of wealth. We feel like obviously is income. That's going to be you getting money, right? That's the very standard. We all got to go to work. We got to get some money, right? And then acquiring assets. Many different things can be defined by acquiring assets. That's pillar number two. Then pillar number three, you have to protect the income and the assets. Pillar number four being leverage and control, which is a huge point, right? So a lot of people, I coach basketball, and I tell people all the time there are three levels of coaching. There's telling people what to do, telling your players what to do, showing them how to do it. Most coaches stop right there. They miss that third step, which is explaining to them why. And when I look at financial services, a lot of people know to get money, right? A lot of people know to then get some assets. I'm gonna get some money, then I'm gonna buy a house, right? I'm gonna get some money, I might buy some stocks, right? But then there comes the level of income and asset protection. How do you protect what you're acquiring? And then the next level, how do you leverage it, right? And then how do you leverage it? And then the final level is distribution and transfer. How do I take advantage of that money, use it for myself, and then transfer it to my kids and grandkids? And now we're talking about generational wealth. People tend to throw that phrase around, Melvin, and don't give a true definition for what it is. What do you, before we get into the Q&A, talk about generational wealth and how you present the true building of generational wealth?
I really look at it like building a kingdom, right? In the truest sense of it. When you're building a kingdom, you start with the baseline. You make sure that you yourself and any things that could rock your foundation, that all of that is taken care of, right? You first of all start with, of course, things like your emergency funds and all of that, right? You start that baseline. But then you start to build up level by level. Then you build up that war chest like you talked about. And then you build up your distribution techniques. Generational wealth really comes in when you set that up to multiply across generations. Those structures that you set up, everything from starting with that baseline emergency fund, it might feel small today, right? But today's emergency fund might be 10,000. Your children's emergency fund might be $1 million. Their assets might be different, right? But either way, it's those structures and habits and traditions that you've built within your family to generate that wealth, doing that over and over again, and being able to teach your kids and show them through your efforts how to get there. That's true generational wealth.
I love that, man. That's tremendous. That's absolutely tremendous. Let's get into that Q&A, man. So let's start with the income pillar. Yeah, start with the income pillar, man. So what are the most innovative strategies for boosting income in today's rapidly changing economy?
You know, I tend to think about generating income as generating value, right? Because income is, in today's world, income is not just the money that's coming into your pocket. It could be social income, right? What is your social status and what is that going to generate for you in the future? So you might make an investment into your social status, and that's your social income at that point in time. The point I'm making here is income in today's world, you have to invest in different aspects of yourself, right? So the first thing you start with is your skill sets, you yourself. What can I do to generate income that I can control? Because that's the biggest thing, right? When you are able to leverage that income from yourself, from your self-generated value, then you create passive income, right? You use your self-generated income to create passive income. And then passive income in today's world creates a longer-term income. It creates your retirement income, right? It creates the compound growth that's going to bring income in the future, right? So income in today's world, you have to think about it in a multi-step facet. What you're doing today for yourself is one, right? What are my skill sets? What kind of certifications do I have? Right? What can I go learn today? What can I go on Coursera today and learn for free that I might be able to pitch to somebody here when I go into a trade fair that could generate me a contract that I might have never gotten otherwise, right? So that's the skill set side of things. Then, of course, using that to generate passive income or passive value, better said, right? Because that's where you grow your investments. You grow your investments over the long term through that passive return, passive value. And that's what gives you comfort in the future. So you're thinking about your income broken out into stages.
Love that. Absolutely love that. Love that drill down and have people understanding what their different types of income should and can be used for, right? You obviously got to pay your everyday bills, but you need to have something going on that is going to be able to, and this is just, we're talking about the everyday person who is working every day, trying to get to a level of wealth. You know, there are obviously other people who comes into large sums of money in one income stream that can just do whatever they want with their extra money, but that's not the everyday person, right? So the everyday person needs to be looking at adding, like you said, other skill sets and other things that you can do on the side to give yourself an advantage, especially in today's economy, because the way inflation is working and the way that things are priced today, cost of living and things like that, it's almost hard to make it off one income, even if you're a two-person household.
It's frankly impossible. I mean, the reality, and sorry, my phone was just about to die, but the reality of what today's market is if you're going to stay ahead of what AI is doing and what any of these other value generators are doing, you have to become the blacksmith. You're the one using the tools to create value. Right? The value is not using you. You're not. I look at those in tech a lot. I look at those in coding a lot. And it's interesting because you find that the people who quickly created companies, a lot of tech people created companies when AI came out, right? But it was those people who looked at AI as a tool. What can I use in addition to the skill set I have to generate value? Not just how do I get hired by the company who's making this. Right? There's
Absolutely
a
correct.
few different perspectives on that. Certainly.
Absolutely. Question two, in the income stages, in the income phase of the pillars of wealth, what are the biggest mistakes people can make when trying to increase their income, and how can they avoid them?
Great question. Because something we find a lot in today's world is the hustle culture wants us it wants us throwing everything that can stick at the wall, right? It wants us trying our hands at everything. It wants us to feel like we're doing something most of the time. So that creates two dynamics. On one side, yes, you don't want to rely on a single source of income. You can't do that in today's world. But at the same time, be careful in your distribution of time, of your time. Your time is the biggest value itself. So one of the biggest mistakes we find is people spend their time doing things that don't necessarily generate value for them, right? And you need to be accountable to yourself for that time. The second thing a lot of people do is in that pursuit of extreme wealth or a hustle culture, we end up trying our hands at so many different things that we did not do enough research on. We don't know enough about. We don't know where the real value in that thing is. How are we actually generating the value? What is my benefit from conversing with this individual, right? Executing this contract, it might give me $20 today, but what is the long-term benefit of what it's going to do for me? So understanding fully well the return of the investment of time and effort is one of the biggest mistakes a lot of people make. But when done appropriately and when spent proper time doing due diligence on those things, it can be one of your biggest assets because it allows you to avoid mistakes that other people have made.
Good stuff, man. I absolutely love that. Absolutely love it. Next pillar, acquiring assets. Okay. How can individuals identify the best assets to acquire for long-term wealth building in an unpredictable market?
Great question. Great question. Because I like that you said an unpredictable market because with with the amount of information that's really pushed out there right now, it's easy to get attached to silos and think that this one particular way or this one particular way is the only way to do things. And that can really hamper you. Again, going back to your previous question. So, looking for the best assets, I think you have to start with the second part of your question, which was, what is your actual goal? You said long-term return, right? That's a goal for an individual. The first thing to start with in identifying what assets to invest in is what is your actual goal? What do you need those dollars doing for you? All right. Because you can find opportunity in real estate that is primarily income focused. You can also find opportunity in real estate that's a long-term capital return focused. Right. So I always like to start that question with understanding you, where you are, what you need your dollars doing for you, not just now, but in the future, and then understanding how do we deploy those dollars. So knowing that, we want to start to look at, okay, what are the best returning asset classes in the industry? The stock market, 7 out of 10 times is typically on the rise. Asset protection vehicles like IULs with the right individual or with the right company, because again, due diligence comes in, but with the right companies, with the right products, can also be a very good vehicle alternative to the stock market. Uh, Bonds, they're their own little thing, but they must play a role in your portfolio. Real estate plays a role in your portfolio as well. So the reason you answer that first question of what am I trying to do is because that then defines what is the allocation of my portfolio. The answer to your question of the best asset is that it's not just one asset, but it's a collection of assets in your portfolio, right? And what are the roles each of those assets are playing?
100%, man. And I'm an insurance guy, so my eyebrows are gonna raise up when you say IUL, right? And part of the problem is I was just on a previous meeting with a recruit that hopefully joins my organization, But we were talking about the IUL, and I get phone calls all the time because people will see TikTok, they'll see social media, and they'll be like, "Man, I saw this video that such and such made. It might be Candy Burris, or it might be Waka Flocka Flame, or somebody like that." And they're talking about cash value whole life insurance. Then I saw another video talking about an IUL. I want an IUL. And I'm glad to sell people an IUL all day long. But when you call me telling me you saw TikTok and you want an IUL, that throws up a red flag for me.
Day one.
Right? I want to ask a question. Why do you want an IUL? What is it that, intrigues you so much about this product? Why do you think this product is for you? And then once we get those questions on the table, we're going to kind of actually do a needs analysis and do an assessment and really do a determination on whether or not this product is for you or not. And I think the product does get a bad rap because of how, and you mentioned another thing, with the right company, right? So the IUL is growing in popularity in social media. So there are a lot of insurance companies that are jumping on board and creating these IUL expresses or these quick IULs that people can get into them quickly. But they're just life insurance policies at that stage with cash value that may not be growing at the rate that another carrier who specializes in IULs can grow that product because of the participation factor, or however they set up their crediting strategies, right? Are they giving you multiple crediting strategies? I know we're getting down in the weeds for some people who are watching that may not know these things.
Some people don't know.
Yeah, but you got to know that every IUL isn't the same. Every insurance company isn't the same. Every investment company isn't the same. You need to be able to understand working with an individual like yourself, or myself, who is going to work to do what's specifically for you. This isn't a cookie cutter business. It shouldn't be anyway. Some people treat it as such, right? Some agents do. Some financial fiduciaries do treat it as cookie cutter. I'm gonna give everybody the same thing, where you really should be tapping in and keep giving people what fits their plans, their goals, and their family structure. Talk about that.
You are absolutely right. I tell anybody this, and it's not just the financial industry as a whole gets a bad rap because I think the barrier to entry can sometimes be low. But when you're speaking with an individual and they ask you nothing about what your goals are before they present you with a solution, that's a red flag for yourself, right? So when you're out there and you're asking for help and you're trying to figure it out, even if you don't come to Courtney or I, if an individual is presenting you with a solution and he doesn't know what the problem is, I'm thinking, what is he solving for you? So that's one of the simplest ways to realize who's in my camp and who's not in my camp. And so that's definitely something I'm always happy, and that's when we first met. That was one of the first things we identified. I think the right kind of advisors, when they speak with each other, they always want to know that ethically this is a person I can mesh with. I think this is a person I can certainly interact with because it means we're putting out the same energy into the world. And I think that's one of the biggest things our community can benefit from. I will say this since we're on this topic. Over the last 3-4 years, you've seen a lot of individuals on social media, on YouTube and all these places who have really become bad actors in this space. They're giving bad advice, they're providing bad investments, doing pump and dumps, so many different things. And a lot of the people that are targeted is our community because of our want of fast income, our want of immediate gratification. So I think it takes a collective change in our thought process of what wealth looks like, what building wealth looks like, and the time frame it takes to really start to weed out some of these individuals and some of these practices in our culture.
Love it, man. That's a home run right there. That's a home run right there, because it's a numbers game for a lot of people, right? It's hey, I got to get in and I got to get a commission and I got to get all these people in, and nobody actually takes the time to care. And a lot of that comes from how they're trained. A lot of it comes from the products that they have access to, right? And we really need to show people that you can be more diversified, you can be more balanced, you can be more caring and more patient in this business for helping people. You'll actually achieve more if you take the time to design a plan for people that is specific for them, and not try to come out with the highest commission that you possibly can gain by selling them this product that's going to pay fast and pay you a lot.
Exactly. And for the folks in our industry, I just want to say again, for African Americans, Africans in the financial industry, the better we do our job, the better we do our job over the long term, the more we're going to build a market for ourselves in other communities. Right? Yes, we want to build here, but to increase that credibility and visibility, we want to get into those other communities. We want those communities to see us as centers of influence within this space. The only way to do that is proper planning, proper integrity early on, so that as we build out, that respect is building as well, right? We think about Tampa. I moved to Tampa 4 years ago. It's been a wonderful city for me. I love this city. But I will say, the number of us who are in and around the space, in and around the interactions, it's not enough of us. Which means we need the next generation of young Black men to say, I want to be like these guys. Right? They might not be making $1 million or football players, but they're making an impact in the community, and they're passing on information that's actually going to be beneficial 2 generations from now. So how do I do that? How do I continue on that legacy? The only way we can do that is if those kids find integrity in what we're doing, and not only comes by us showing integrity in what we do.
We can, and there's people before us that can show us how to make $1 million in this business too. So
exactly.
it just might take us a little bit longer. You know, we may not be able to do it by the stroke of our name on a piece of paper in a matter of a few months. I ran the 40 in April and March, and then come May, I'm signing a multi-million-dollar deal. It won't work that fast, but we'll get you there, right?
Exactly.
So second part of acquiring assets, man, we having a great conversation, man. We got so many more questions, man. We can drill down into this stuff. And one of the things that I like about people, again, I tie a lot of things into basketball, is when I'm meeting people and I'm talking basketball with them, and I've done this in cases where I've had 2 sons who were fortunate enough to play basketball. One is college basketball, one is currently playing. So one of the things that I like to do is I like to talk to the coach to see if he enjoys talking about basketball. Do you like it, or are you just giving me some spiel because you want to recruit my kid? You know what I mean? If I see that you have a passion and you just love talking it, and we eventually have to shut each other up about it, then you the kind of, and that's how I feel about financial services the same way. You know, eventually we're gonna have to, speed this along, because we only got like 30 minutes left, and we got a bunch of questions left. So we could talk all day about this stuff. So, what are some hidden gems? Some hidden gems, assets. Wait, let me get this question. What are some hidden gems that savvy investors should know or should be looking at right now?
Great question. I think one of the first things is when we think about where we are in the market cycle right now. I think for investors with significant assets, or at least a decent enough assets, and you'd be surprised. I mean, when I say decent assets, I'm talking 40,000, 50,000 in savings, 20,000 in savings. Start to look into things like franchise options. Right, there are a lot of franchise companies that will get you started for 50,000. I say this to say, start looking for small business opportunities that will grow with this market cycle into the large market cycle. Right, we're in the beginning stages of a new market cycle. We went through a bear market in 2022. The stock market has been doing really well, yes, over the last year. But the economic cycle and the stock market cycle are 2 completely separate things. So I think right now we're in a stage where if you have the assets, if you have the savings, start to look into some economic opportunities within the market, right? Look at buying a small business. Look at, again, we've talked about initiatives that are more socially driven, but now you're the one being able to drive that. So you're looking for areas to impact the community, but also generate value for yourself. This is tying back to what I said at the beginning. All income is not just financial income. There's something called social income as well, right? What am I putting out there? What am I getting back? Whether it's in my prestige or the respect in the community, my ability to influence and generate future value as well.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Third pillar, income and asset protection. So what are the essential steps everyone should take to protect their income and assets from unexpected challenges?
Great question. So the first thing is what we talked about at the beginning. When we talked about building a kingdom, your emergency fund is the first thing. That's your primary protection against everything. Your ability to bounce back, your ability to survive a moment, right? Now, second to that would be protecting the most important asset across everything, which is yourself. This is where disability insurance comes in, right? Making sure you have the ability to continue to generate value, God forbid, should anything happen to you, that's the second step to making sure that your income is protected. The third is making sure you're never behind the curve. That is, your skill sets and your value in the market should always stay ahead of the curve. If we see markets going towards AI, go get a free AI certification. You know, if you're in the financial industry and you see markets going through a certain way, go take a free class that gives you an edge, right? Go do something that gives you an edge in the market and always stay ahead of the curve.
How can the right insurance policies act as a safety net for one's financial future?
In a couple of ways. I mean, first of all, we just talked about disability insurance. I know personally families who have benefited from the impact of disability insurance and keeping them afloat through a short time and a long time. So that's the first one. The second one is when we think about generational wealth and guaranteeing generational wealth. Unfortunately, our culture is learning financial independence a little bit late. So there's a lot of people who didn't start early enough, but have an opportunity now, right? So you can use an insurance policy to guarantee that even if my life wasn't perfect, my children's life will be perfect, right? My grandchildren's life will be perfect. The right insurance policy will allow for you to, for example, get get long-term care when you're in your older years, but also still provide that death benefit for your children and significantly change their lives at that point in time. I say all of this, taking a step back. Estate planning is also very, very important when this comes in. It doesn't matter what you give your kids if you don't give them direction in terms of how to use it. It's still your asset. You might be in heaven taking buckets, screaming at God like, yo, I gotta go back, man. This man is wasting my money. Or you can provide instructions for your assets to make sure that they're utilized appropriately and that your kids learn why you did those things, right? So they can do it for their kids.
Absolutely love it, man. I tell people all the time, insurance is the foundation of your financial house. It's the foundation is the most important part of your house. If you got a good foundation and something happens to the rest of your house, it makes it a lot easier to rebuild. And that's figuratively and literally like how a foundation can work for you, and insurance is at the basis of that. A lot of wealthy people have all kinds of different insurance policies, and they can feel more freer to take risks when you have insurance to protect your health, to protect your wealth, to protect your life, your family. Like you mess around and you have your money in a very risky portfolio of any kind. It could be a hedge fund, it could be whatever it is. And if those portfolios go down the drain, if your real estate portfolio goes down the drain for whatever reason, you're sitting here holding a bunch of real estate loans, and COVID hits, and now you can't find renters, or whatever it is. If you have to go bankrupt or sell some of those properties, a good bounce back is often insurance for a lot of people. So good stuff, man. So leverage and control, right? That's our fourth pillar.
That's
Can you
correct.
share how Yes, sir. Can you share how leveraging financial resources effectively can build wealth without taking an excessive risk?
If both Nipsey Hussle and currency tell you something, it's probably real. Other people's money is great. Leverage and credit is the best way to generate value if you utilize it as an investment and not a crutch. Right? OPM, baby, OPM. So
OPM.
Leverage especially in our community, and for us who are building wealth at this young age, is really a case of looking at credit and access to credit as a way of getting a leg up on everybody else. Right? How do I get what I need to build this business, buy this real estate property, make the investment I need to generate value that exceeds the credit I took? It is not splurging your credit card because you have credit access to it, right? So we must change the idea of what leverage is in our community. Uh, and I think the first step is really redefining what it is as a tool.
Love it. What are the best practices for maintaining control over financial decisions while using leverage to grow wealth?
I think the first thing is discipline. I would be lying just like anybody else would be lying if we said we've never done something stupid on the credit side, right? Every single person has had that moment where they did something stupid, but it's learning and it's applying discipline. And it's first of all giving yourself controls. What is my budget? How am I even keeping track of my budget? A lot of people say they have budgets, but it's just a piece of paper that they wrote something on one time, and they think back to, all right, I think my expenses are $2,000, but I'll be all right. I'll give you an example. My girl, she is scarily anal, excuse my language, but she's scarily to the T about her budget. As an advisor, I'm even like, wow. Like she spends every day, every evening tweaking it. Nothing might have changed, but she just wants to remind herself. It's the discipline. It's the making sure that I'm keeping myself in check. And instead of getting our dopamine hits from social media and all these other stupid places, why don't we get it from playing a game with our finances, right? Enjoying those little wins every day, right? So some of the first steps in maintaining control is finding little wins in your finances every day, right? Keeping track of your budget. At the end of the month, making sure that you were true to yourself in what you spent. You need tools like Rocket Money, tools like Mint used to be one from before. Credit Karma. There's a lot of tools that'll let you track your finances. My firm uses eMoney. There's a lot of tools that'll help you track your finances, but be true to those things and be honest with yourself. Right? And then secondly, it's investing for the future, realizing that leverage and credit, the consequences of using it incorrectly happen in the future. So whatever you're doing with credit, just know that you're either you're either paying your future self or taking from your future self. All right.
I love that, man. I love that. I do this thing. I used to do this thing with my kids. I call it the time machine, right? And it would be, you know, you got to think about where you're going to be in 10 years. Put yourself in the time machine and think about where you want to be in 10 years. Or I would even give it to them in a different perspective of, I would say, hey man, your 30-year-old self ain't very happy with you right now.
Mm-hmm.
Your 25-year-old self is looking back from the future and be like, man, you got to stop doing that, bro. You messing us up here.
Man.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So the last one, distribution and transfer, right? So this is an important factor. How are we getting access to this money and how are we leaving it for other people? So what key factors should be considered when planning the distribution and transfer of wealth for future generations?
This is where we go back to what we spoke about earlier, estate planning, and having a discussion around that. Right? Estate planning is something that's actually not as much spoken about in our culture, I believe. Right? The wealthy ones do, but the layman thinks he doesn't have a need for it because he doesn't have enough. I don't believe that. I believe every single person deserves a will. If you lived a life, you deserve a will. Right? It's just like the same way. If you're living life, you're paying taxes, then you deserve a financial plan. This is why I don't charge to provide financial planning. I believe it's a right for you. Right now, whether you exercise that or not is on you. So, the first key thing is sitting down with your financial advisor and really asking them, first of all, what are the different areas of my estate planning that I need to make sure of based on the assets I have. Right? Because estate planning is fluid. It depends on what you have. Right? If you have just a little bit, that's okay. You do the basic forms. If you have a little bit more, make sure you have that extra protection there. So setting up your trusts and your wills are going to be some of the most important things to make sure that your assets are being distributed appropriately. Now, what can you do today is utilizing the right vehicles, the right accounts. All right. So everybody talks about a Roth account. I love Roth accounts, but also make sure that you understand the rules and regulations around the Roth account. Right. So the type of vehicle you're utilizing matters. What the tax impact of that vehicle is down the line matters. And then what is the step up cost, or what is the impact to the next generation when your assets pass? That's a third thing you should ask yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Or you should be getting from your advisor, right? Some of the things
You
that
should
you
be
should be
getting from your
getting
advisor, exactly.
from your advisor. So, yeah, absolutely, man. And then the last question in the distribution and transfer: how can families ensure a seamless and conflict-free transfer of wealth and asset generation or across generations?
Yeah. Again, going back to that will, and your trust as well, and then making sure you're providing the right instructions with your trust. Um, I've seen a lot of people who, unfortunately, with the wrong advisors, have ended up in trust that weren't worded appropriately, weren't titled correctly. So many different things could affect that. So making sure of that. Taking advantage of insurance. Um, Insurance provides a lot of tax benefits when you're passing assets on to your kids, when it comes to your estate probates, all of that stuff. Sitting down with your financial advisor to make sure that you're discussing the impact to every single dollar when it moves on to the next generation based on the vehicles that they're currently invested in or potentially will be invested in.
Man, it's been tremendous, brother. I knew this was going to be a superstar Q&A with you, man, and I appreciate you
I
doing it
appreciate
for
it.
sure.
All right, everyone. We'll be back ready next week. We want to make a big announcement. Starting next week, my brother and I will certainly be trading places here. I'll be your Wealth Wednesdays host. I'm excited for this. I've been looking forward to this. Courtney has done a fantastic job. It's the job he's done that made me excited about this. And so I certainly look forward to bringing an impact there. Um, don't worry, his pretty face is still gonna be here. He's still gonna be here. Don't worry about that. I'll just be certainly bringing all the knowledge and guests that we can provide. So look forward to many more events. We'll be bringing different styles to this. I'll be taking it on the road as much as possible. My goal is just to certainly elevate what my brother has done, take it to the next level, keep on growing with this organization, and certainly give back to the community where possible. So thank you guys. I really appreciate it. Cheers.